Johnny Joey Jones, welcome to the I Dare You podcast. It is such an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So, hey, congratulations. You are the author of a brand new book, Behind the Badge, third week as #1 in the New York Times bestseller list. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's by far a team effort, but something I'm very proud of, extremely proud, mostly that our audience is resonating with the message of the book.
Yeah, apparently, for sure. By the way, I have my copy here, sir, and I just finished reading it last night. It's just an incredible read. It's an emotional read in so many ways. And I just want to thank you for writing this book. It is remarkable. The feedback you're getting from others just must be off the charts.
It is, a lot of first responders writing me saying, "Hey, this is so similar to what I've experienced, but I haven't been able to put it in words," or even family members saying, "Hey, I didn't realize my husband or daughter was going through these things." It wasn't as difficult to write as it was to sit down and read into the audiobook. That's when the stories really hit me. I don't know why. I guess because I was taking a very analytical approach in writing it, but to sit down and read it out loud, it was difficult. I had to take breaks and kind of get my mind right.
I bet you did. I mean, I've never served in the military. I've never been a first responder. I have friends and family in both. But I imagine writing is one thing, but when you actually, the spoken word, it had to be
Mhm.
difficult to relay all these stories.
It was, and partially because I know these people firsthand. One is my brother-in-law. The other one is a guy that I've known since I was 3 years old, and I call him my uncle. And so to hear a side of them out loud that a million hunting trips I haven't heard. I might have heard the story, but not how it affected them, not how they felt about it, not the raw, vulnerability and honesty about it. I'm just so proud of each and every one of them for being that way with us, for nine individuals to reveal their heart and soul that way. I'm just really proud of them.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. Joey, you interviewed 9 first responders, and you write in your book, I interviewed 9 first responders who have all had an impact on my life. Tell us about these 9. How did you select these 9 of the millions of first responders you could have chosen?
I love this question because it's been poised in a way of how did you choose these nines? Like, well, no, they chose me. They came into my life.
Very cool.
The first two chapters, Clay Hedrick, like I said, I've known since I was 3. Keith Dempsey is my brother-in-law. I married his my wife is his sister, and I've known him for more than 20 years. And then the others are similar. Jeremy Judd, the third chapter. I went to Maine to hunt a moose. Didn't know anything about it, and he was a game warden up there and was volunteering to help. And next thing you know, he's carrying me. His buddy's carrying my legs, and he's got me piggyback to get through a swamp so we can go hunt a moose. And so when you have that kind of experience with someone, you really get to know them. And all the way down to Caitlin Kopfila. I was at an event, and she was there to be my security in a uniformed police officer in Tampa. Actually, sheriff's deputy should get mad at me if I called her police officer. And so we didn't really need security at that event. It was pretty calm. And I said, "Hey, won't you just come down and have dinner with us, or come sit down and have dinner with us?" Of course, she didn't want to, but her boss happened to be there, and he said, "Yeah, go sit down. You're good." And just got to hear her story, over dinner at an event I was speaking at. And I had to go speak in front of everyone, and I was still enthralled, wanting to learn more about her. So every person in the book, it was a very, life put us in contact. It wasn't, I didn't go Google, Border Patrol agent and Vince Vargas popped up. I've known him for 12 years, so it's been fun.
That's really cool. And by the way, you mentioned something there that you said, I think, of course, she didn't want to. And I'm going to pick up on that. One of the points you make in your book is that, in fact, I'm reading here, one thing all these people have in common is that none of them wants to be called a hero. Tell us
Yeah.
more about this and really what drives these special individuals.
It's so funny. We just did a Fox Nation special where I got 4 of these guys to come sit down in my living room and tape and just talk. And I looked at Clay Hedrick, and I pointed over at Jeremy Judd, and I said, or first I asked Clay, I said, "Are you a hero?" And he said, "No, no, I'm not a hero." And I pointed at Jeremy, and I said, "Is he a hero?" And he kind of went silent because he knew I'd caught him,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Well, I think so, but that's true. That humility is honest. You can't fake that kind of humility. And the reason why they're so humble is they don't get the celebrations and pats on the back that the military does. It's not to say we don't appreciate our first responders, but we just don't put them on the same pedestal in the same category. And that's really a detriment to the service they provide and what they endure to do it. And so they do have a humility about them. They also feel like the mission is more important than themselves, and I think that that helps instill that humility. It's I've said this. I don't remember if it made it in the book because you learn about a book after you write it and you
Hmm.
start talking about it and you're continuing to analyze it. But I've said this several times that they what they did is early on in their career they decided that our peace of mind was more important than theirs, and doing that job and the mission was more important than the sacrifice it imposed upon them. And when you're starting there, you don't look for pats on the back. You just look for a way to keep doing it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Joey, I received your book, and it arrived in the mail, and I went on Instagram, and I was so excited to get the book. And I talked about how very soon I'm going to be introducing Johnny Joey Jones, and about how this is all about the first responders. That was on a Saturday morning just a couple of weeks ago, and I hit publish on Instagram, and out it went. And I kid you not, it was that same day that 3 hours later, the up here, I live in Idaho, and so in Coeur d'Alene,
Mhm.
Idaho, those two firefighters uh,
Yeah.
were were killed. The pressure that these first responders are under right now, what they are doing to keep us safe. I mean, you see it better than anyone.
It's true. I mean, sitting on the couch, what we call it, Fox and Friends, hosting over the last couple of weekends. I mean, you had the LA riots, you had the firefighters that were ambushed and murdered, you had this amazing and horrible tragedy in Texas, and there are going to be heroic stories, as tragic as it is, and it is beyond tragic. There are going to be heroic stories from that we'll learn for the next couple of years. I mean, I interviewed a Coast Guardsman that's a rescue swimmer, and we interviewed him one morning with several of his peers, three of his peers, just to find out what they were doing. And then the next day or the day later, it comes out that he's rescued over 100 people.
Oh,
And he had that 1,000 yard stare in his eyes, and this was his first major operation. And so I could see that he was processing it. I had no idea at that level. And there's going to be story after story of human beings. Some of them not even first responders. Some of them just neighbors that were willing to die for their neighbor. But story after story of human beings, specifically first responders, who put their lives on the line. And I haven't gotten the full details, but we did have someone come on and report. I believe it was Dan Patrick in Texas came on and reported that a fire chief was swept away trying to respond. And
no,
so that's the nature of the job they do. And you may go a 20-year career without seeing an incident like what happened in Texas, but it's really the slow, steady trickle of responding to someone's house when their father's had a heart attack, or responding to a domestic violence case, or responding to a car accident in the same intersection you take your kids to school in.
yeah,
And it's this idea that the worst days of our lives are just another shift for them.
yeah, unreal. By the way, I was going to ask you about the Coast Guard rescue swimmer Scott Ruskin. Did you interview
Yeah.
Scott Ruskin?
We did, yeah. We
Oh,
interviewed him and three of his peers the morning before that news broke. The morning, I think it was Saturday or Sunday morning after the flood happened. Yeah.
I missed that because I just saw an interview with Scott Ruskin. This is after the rescue. So you're saying this happened before the rescues?
This happened after the first day and a half of rescuing people. So I think the flood was Thursday night going into Friday, and it was Saturday or Sunday morning. We just happened to have a contact with Coast Guard, and we just wanted to highlight that they were there working, because you don't think about Coast Guard in Texas, and we just
Right.
wanted to highlight the work they were doing. And we had no idea that he had already rescued dozens, if not 100 people at that point. And but you could just see all four of them. We had four Coast Guardsmen there, and all four of them just had that look on their face, like they were still processing what they
I
were
bet.
seeing.
I bet.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. One of the things I remember from the interview I saw with him, but he was thanking everyone else. And speaking of, he doesn't want to be viewed as a hero. He was saying everyone else would have done it with that type of training. It was about everyone else around him that helped make this possible. And he just said, "No, this is what I do." I just thought it was fascinating how they talk about what they do. They're not a hero according to them.
I was a bomb tech, and a lot of people have a lot of respect for that job, and a lot of people think we're kind of crazy for doing it. And
Yes.
we have a very similar reaction when someone applauds our work, because essentially you can't go looking for heroism, because if you do, you'll do something dangerous and you'll take a risk you shouldn't take. And so it's really important in our job field to weed out guys and gals who might feel that way. And I think in the job of someone like and he's an NCO, but I forgot his rank, so Coast Guardsman Ruskin. You have to have the same mentality. I'm going to go in and do this as safe as possible, but doing it at all is so dangerous. They are heroes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. By the way, for those who don't know, Johnny Joey Jones had two tours, Iraq and Afghanistan, bomb tech, as
Hmm.
you mentioned, and so you hear it all the time. But for me and our listeners, thank you very much for your service and for all of your
I
colleagues.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Joey, you talked about the trauma in the book. There's a story about Keith Dempsey, who's a firefighter, and I believe the phrase that was used there was the slow, steady drip of trauma. And you referenced it just a few minutes ago. What does that mean exactly? I think it's a great point.
It's this idea that you watch Chicago Fire or you watch a documentary on 9/11. And I think we end up thinking, well, that was the worst day of those people's lives. And in some way, maybe it was, this over dramatized, when I referenced the TV show, this over dramatized example. And I can understand it because in the movie Hurt Locker, which is about my profession, there are a lot of over dramatized things that happen because the scariest things, if you don't understand how bombs work as a viewer, you wouldn't know. And it's the same thing for first responders. I mean, we talk about the slow, steady drip of trauma. I open up the book talking about my dad, um, basically passing out from loss of oxygen to his brain one early Sunday morning. Firefighters get there, they respond. You think about this. They're in somebody's home. They're seeing children, grown-ups crying, scared. Somebody is laid out on the floor, a son missing legs, doing CPR on his dad. You take over, and all you want to do is keep this man alive for his family. And you hand him off to the paramedics, and they take him to the hospital. And then you go back to the fire hall and you wait for the next call, which might be 30 minutes from now. And so I ran into the commander of that shift. I don't remember his rank. I think captain. A few weeks later, he recognized me. I'm pretty easy to recognize with my legs. And he asked, said, "Hey, how did it turn out with your dad?" And I said, "Actually, he passed away." And you can see that look come over his face. And it wasn't like sorrow or surprise because he's seen that 100 times, but it was remorse of wish I could have done more. I'm sorry, I hate that for you. And then he's got to go on about his day. So it's not like this was an overly kinetic event. It wasn't, someone shooting or something or a bad car wreck, but it was one event that might be three or four on that shift that night and a dozen this week. And that's the slow, steady trauma. I mean, if you think they don't empathize and feel the pain of the people that they respond to, I mean, they would have to be inhuman to not. And then you put on top of that someone like Jeremy Judd, who was a rescue and recovery diver. His words ring hollow today in the aftermath of Texas, which is you don't find people alive underwater.
Hmm.
And just think about if that were your job, in the rural area of Maine, a lot of people vacation up there and come up there to hunt and fish. And it wasn't like you didn't have a lot of work to do. But if you're diving for somebody, you're not diving to rescue them, you're diving to recover them. And that's the type of slow, steady trauma, day after day, shift after shift.
Yeah. One of my best friends is a firefighter here in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and he runs a CrossFit gym in town, Joey. And I go there several times a week, and he trains me. And you make the point in here that the majority of the calls that they take are not fires. And it's such
Yeah.
a simple point, but it hit me like a brick saying, oh my gosh, right. Much of what they do are not fires at all. And what they see, they don't necessarily want to relive it. You also then make the point that they drive through their battlefields and share with us about that dynamic of being in your hometown and being in the battlefield.
Yeah, this is the best example I can give because it's a real one. In speaking with my brother-in-law, when he talks about his kids, they're my nieces, so it hits even harder. But just, you're at a call at 1 a.m. There's a vehicle wreck in an intersection, and a child dies in that wreck. So maybe it's a drunk driver, maybe it was somebody, had a seizure, whatever the reason was. An innocent child lost their life, and you're there, and you literally have to see it, put your hands on it, and clean it up. And then 5 hours later, you're driving your own kids through that same intersection to school. And that's hard to wrap your mind around. And then you think about take it further. you drive past an apartment building just to get to your fire hall every day. And in that apartment building, you've responded to domestic violence. You've responded to someone cooking drugs and catching it on fire. You've responded to, someone having a seizure from overdosing and just the worst things that we can do to ourselves. Accidents are terrible, but when it's acts of evil or irresponsibility, that's even worse because you're there to save a life. You're not there to administer discipline. You can't, reprimand that husband that beat his wife and she's choosing not to press charges or admit that's what happened, but you're there to, treat her wounds. And so even I think a couple of the police officers in the book talk about situations where they knew something more nefarious was afoot, but they couldn't legally do anything else. They had to leave the situation. And just think about going home every night knowing that not only are you there to do good in the world, but the law itself won't let you sometimes. And
Hmm.
and it's just difficult.
Yeah. So, what have you learned about first responders through this? What drives them to do what they do? Why are they doing this?
I don't know specifically. I wish I did after interviewing nine of them. I think it's very different for each of them. If I were going to turn a phrase that probably I applied to all of them, they could do anything, but I don't know if anyone could do what they do. And I think that responsibility sits heavy on their shoulders. I think that all of them enjoy the technical aspect of their job. I talk about how, you leave the academy or the recruit training, whatever it is for that specific job, and you've learned tactics and procedures and outcomes and historical data and the law and how to administer it and how to, drive a vehicle in a risky situation or how to put out a fire. And this is all very almost scientific. It's very academic. And then your very first call, you realize none of that matters as much as the fact this is a human being in front of you in pain, in stress, in duress. And then it becomes all about humans, not tactics, procedures. Those are secondary. Those are how you keep humans safe and alive. And I think early on in each of their careers, something happened, and Clay gives the best description, but something happened that made them question if this was really the job for them or if this is really what they signed up for. Yet each and every one of them, in feeling that, went ahead and chose to go back to work the next day.
Hmm.
And I think that that is just something we should be thankful for. Why they continue to do it, I think it's different for every person. I think for the most part, it's this belief in the mission. They're a part of something bigger than themselves, and that's something that I used to think only the military could understand. And it's got to be more difficult for them because they're coming home to their sons and daughters and husbands and wives every night. To where in the military, when you're on deployment, you don't have those distractions, and I say with air quotes, to remind you what you're missing or what's precious. You're in a bad place, and that's okay because it's just you. And then if you're a first responder, everywhere is a bad place, and you're taking your family through the middle of it every day.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I will tell you, and I will never look at first responders the same again. It's just really beautiful. And then the nice surprise, Joey, I have to say, thank you for these photos. All the
Yeah,
photos you talked about, Clay Hedrick, and there was also the picture of you being on the shoulders of is it Jeremy Judd?
it is, Jeremy. Yeah.
But the photos really really bring this home, and I'm not sure who made that decision to do that, but thank you for that because man, did that ever bring it home.
We have a great editor at Fox News Books that she's very smart, and without her, I would have captured these stories and written my commentary. I would have had no idea how to present it to the reader in an organized manner, and
Yeah.
so that was one of the things that, through years of experience, they understood that readers would want that.
Well, she hit the mark. Hey, I know I don't have you for very much longer. I was thinking about where I'd like to focus a question on one of these stories. I got to go to Jeremy Judd. You brought him up he was a recovery diver, which of course, if you're in recovery, you're recovering bodies. But what a story of transformation with him and with his dog. Would you mind sharing just a bit about that story and why did that one stand out to you?
Yeah, first of all, a lot of people don't think about game wardens or natural resource officers as being first responders. And Jeremy really opened my eyes and so many people's eyes. I think that his chapter may be one of, if not the most important, for people to gain perspective. As a game warden in the state of Maine, if anything happens on an open body of water, it's his jurisdiction before the police. Or if something happens in the woods, and there's a lot of woods in Maine, he's got to lead the police into the woods because they don't know how to navigate, 1,000 acre square. And so
Hmm.
it's really interesting to think about the first responder aspect of his job. He specialized in diving in the beginning, mainly, he says in the book, so he could become a game warden because you've got to bring stuff to the table. There are hundreds of people applying for a handful of jobs. And then on top of that, after becoming a diver, rescue recovery diver, there's just a few incidents back to back that really made it difficult. And finally, his wife said, "You've got to live life too. You can't keep doing this." And so he got a dog, not necessarily with this in mind, but he got a dog, trained the dog, and the dog picked it up so well that the main game warden service said, "We want her to be one of our rescue dogs, and you can be her handler." So he
Oh,
left the dive team, became a dog handler. They became, an award-winning canine team. And he talks in the book how everything turned around. It went from recovering dead bodies and seeing the look of remorse to recovering people alive and rescuing people and seeing their families overjoyed. And that had to do a lot for his mental health.
yeah, just a beautiful story. And of Tundra Tunny, they
Yeah.
saved 24 lives, Joey. 24 lives.
I know, and that may, if you have perspective, that's a big number. But if you think it's a small number, just think it's a rural populated area, and if you do that once in a lifetime, you find somebody alive that would have otherwise died. I mean, that sticks with you forever. And to do it a couple dozen times, that, like I said, they were awarded several awards, put on TV. Of course, you're going to brag on a successful team like that,
Yeah.
but underneath all of that, she really helped turn Jeremy's life around.
Yeah, really something. One of as I prepare for interviews, I always go to the reviews on Amazon and just look at what people are saying about the book.
Yeah.
Good grief, Joey! I'm not sure if you've read these, but the responses from the customer reviews from first responders and normal, non. Anyway, it's just powerful. I get chills reading that. Have you checked all this out? Because you're definitely hitting the mark here.
I haven't. I don't know why. Maybe just trying to stay humble about it. I'm very, very excited that the book's doing so well. And I'll tell you, none of those reviews are about the words I wrote. They're about these nine individuals who put their vulnerability and their most insecure thoughts out there, so other first responders and family members could understand and feel not so alone, and so the rest
Yeah.
of us could gain perspective. So it's just any testament, any accolade is just a testament to them.
Well said. I'll read just one or two sentences here from one individual. If only the citizens understood some of the decisions they have to make, and all of them putting their lives on the line to save strangers. Their jobs aren't really understood or appreciated. All I can say is, God bless our men and women behind the badge.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, Joey, last couple of questions. What would you hope the reader would do or think as a result of reading this incredible, powerful book behind the badge?
Yeah, what's the call to action, right? Here's the deal. We're 25 years into a conversation about veterans' mental health. We understand as a society our own culpability in the mental health of veterans that we sent to war. We're at day zero in that conversation for first responders.
Hmm.
Most of their mental health is assessed on the SWAT team, in the police precinct, at the fire hall, and I think that society owes it to our first responders to have that conversation and acknowledge the trauma they endure and the effect it leaves on their lives because they give up their peace of mind for the rest of their lives, so that we can live with this entitlement that if we go out the front door and our house catches on fire, somebody's there to put it out. And if we have a car wreck, somebody's there to save us. If somebody, hurts us or steals from us, somebody's there to respond. And they have to be the ones that do that. And I just think we should really have a greater appreciation, but beyond that, um, a greater acknowledgement and movement forward in supporting them.
It's good. I like that a lot. Hey, Joey, you're doing a lot with Fox News and a lot of other projects. What's the best way to follow you and stay in touch with all the great work that you and your team are doing?
Yeah, so if you go on to X, it's at Johnny Joey. So, or at Johnny JOHNNY underscore Joey JOEY. Same thing for Instagram. Not super active on Facebook, but I've got a Johnny Joey Jones Facebook page, and it's basically just what I post on Instagram makes it over there. So
That's
you
cool.
can you can find me personally there, or if you tune in the Fox News channel, especially on a weekend, I'm probably there somewhere.
It's great. You're doing great work, sir. So, hey, but in just a second, I'm going to ask my final question. It's your I Dare You challenge for all of us. I do
All
this
right.
at the end of every episode. Before I do that, though, Right, the first thing I read in your book when I opened it up, it says, "My inspiration for this book and to tell the here it is. My inspiration for this book and to tell these stories came after years of sitting by a campfire and around a dinner table with the first responders in my family and close circle of friends." And I skip ahead. We also dedicate this book to the surviving families of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice performing their heroic duty. So again, I just this book is really powerful and special. It is about the first responders, but I think that last phrase about it is also about the families who have paid that ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, I think we often overlook the truest sacrifice is probably those that survive our heroes. I know plenty of Gold Star wives from the military and Gold Star children, and man, that you talk about living in honor of your father or mother's sacrifice or spouse. They really are people that just put us in awe, and to have that happen at the first responder level when it's in your hometown. That's difficult because you drive by that place, you drive
Mm,
by that spot, and you live and endure and you raise your kids and you keep the memory alive. And we just really should honor those people.
yeah, beautifully said. Okay, Joey, here we go. What is your I Dare You challenge for all of us? The one thing that we could do or try to live a better life. Joey Jones, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not that hard. You got to treat people with respect. That's it. Just treat people with care and concern. That's the biggest thing. And I think if you do that, I could be more specific, but that encapsulates all of it. People want to help each other out. They want to be good people. People go through bad things, and it turns them into ornery or bad people for a moment. And give people grace. I'd say that's the number one thing is give people grace.
It's great. That's a wonderful I Dare You challenge, something we can implement straight away. Everyone, the name of the book is Behind the Badge, Answering the Call to Serve on America's Homefront, New York Times, runaway bestseller. So, Joey, thanks for being here on the I Dare You podcast. Congratulations on this book and for telling and sharing these stories. I appreciate you being here, sir.
Thanks for lending your platform to us and for supporting the book. We truly appreciate it.